Downtown Development Authority for Wednesday, January 25th, 2023 at 7 p.m. Elizabeth, can we do a roll call, please?
Oh, wow. So I don't have updated sheets, so you're gonna have to give me a quick second. All right, Saint Laurent?
Here.
Lee?
Here.
Zach?
Here.
Who's next? Char?
Yes. Here.
Okay. Rose?
Here.
Brant?
Here.
Hutnick?
Here.
McLeod?
Here.
Okay, you're all here. Here, so the only one
All
absent
right.
is 2, 4, 6, 8. So the only one's absent is Poznansky, okay.
All right, and then if everybody could rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, first up, we have public forum. Would anybody like to speak for public forum? No? All right, moving on. We need an approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Didn't you guys add, I thought you added board appointments. Or you did that ahead of.
Nobody made a motion.
Are you amending it? I'm sorry.
I can't, I'm not doing it. There was a motion made in a second.
We can do that.
I don't know if you want to rescind.
I can rescind it.
Okay,
You wanna add?
all right.
Somebody has to tell me what to do, I really don't.
Here, all right, well,
I've had no
Make a
training.
motion to add the agenda item to work on appointments.
okay, a motion to add that under new business A.
New business.
Okay, so we have a motion to add under new business A, vacant seat appointments.
I'll second.
Second by Lee. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
I'm sorry, who made the first one?
Tar.
Thank you.
All right, next, we'd like to acknowledge our new board members. So if you guys are familiar with,
Do you need to do approval of the board, or approval of the agenda?
I thought that's what we did with the,
You
Oh,
just
you
did
added
that.
to it, okay, that's,
Yeah.
okay.
welcome our new board members. It's, we've got Deborah McLeod,
Thank you.
Marty Hutnick,
Thank you.
Danielle Lee, and Andrea St. Laurent here. They're new additions to the board, and I look forward to what each one of you brings to the table. It's great to have you here, and look forward to working with you guys.
Us too.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, first up, old business. We have the Romeo Winterfest 2023 food truck discussion and final decision. I think everybody's familiar with what we're here to talk about, but I am going to defer to John to kind of discuss the scope of this and how it came about. John?
Certainly, I mean, I'll at least get this started here. As far as the answer to how it came about, as far as for me and my involvement, I would have to say 2 weeks. It's possible by this time flies. It's 3 weeks ago. I had been approached by a few people. A couple of them were local restaurant owners, a couple were just residents, kind of asking some questions, which I said I really don't have the answers to. Why are you coming and asking me? And it sort of ended up being, well, 2 reasons. One, I also have a food establishment in the village, and I am also on the DDA. So to that, when I'm asked as a DDA member to try to answer questions, I go out and search for information. That's kind of when I first initially put word out, hey, I need some information. And I think that kind of got the dialogue started, certainly amongst Elizabeth and myself. I'd have to look back and see how many other board members were actually involved at that point too. I guess I know of at least one that responded to a couple emails. So I guess to why are we here, how did this get started, that is it. And I know we're here now because Winterfest is a week and a half away, 2 weeks.
Week from Saturday.
A week from Saturday away. So it's kind of like, any questions or any concerns, now is the time. Should have been sooner, but we are where we are.
So just to clarify, what is the ask right now? What are you guys, do you guys have a compromise here? I know there's, or is it just a no food truck, period?
Well, I mean, I can't speak for other board members because we haven't had any specific discussions as to actually how do we all feel individually. If I'm starting it, I guess I would say last night at about 9 o'clock,
I'm sorry.
I was given some information for the very, very first time, and I have to say I was shocked. I think you guys all have copies of it. The one that jumped out at me was one that looks like, I don't know what page number it is in your packet, but it's behind a map and it has got pictures of food vendors, listing of what they have, what they're carrying, and what they're bringing out. For, I'm sorry, Elizabeth, 10 days away, right, is our event? For approximately, to having asked for this information earlier, to be given this information 10 days prior to the event, like I said, I was shocked last night. I really, really was. It's not cohesive with any of the information that I was provided when I did get information regarding food during Winterfest. And I don't know, that was kind of a little troubling for me, because why the delay in getting information, and why, when I did get information, and there were actually statements made during public meetings, contrary to what this information, which we now have, it's just troubling. I don't understand why and how that happened. I don't know what the agenda is. However, we are where we are. We all want a huge, successful event for all of us. So, after last night, trying to calm down a little bit with this information, I said, what do we have to do here, shy of throwing up the arms and saying, let's cancel this event, because that is not by any means in anybody's best interest. What can we do? So I was able to kind of gather a few ideas, which a couple of them actually I had thrown out when this was first brought to me. So I guess I have to throw out the ask would be, let's at least take these food vendors that if we have committed to them, we've committed to them, put them in one location. The attendees that want this type of food, this type of attraction, have one place to go. They can look around, decide what they'd like, and for the most part, try to make everybody happy. So, for the, in the spirit of cooperation here, again, I say the third time, 10 days before the event, that's sort of the compromise that I have come up with, and I guess I'll throw out there since I'm right now the one with the floor. So, if there's issues with what I've said as far as the history of how we got here, I'm more than happy to address them.
If I speak out of turn, it's because I don't know the rules.
It's okay,
Can I-
you have the
can I make a
floor.
comment?
Yep.
Okay, so, I was speaking to, I'm going blank, Lee, I'm sorry.
Danielle.
Danielle, I'm
Oh, sorry, you were looking at me. I was looking at the map.
Yeah, no problem. So I know you have experience
Yep.
with food trucks at the Lavender Festival?
Yep.
Or, I'm not sure that's exactly what it's
Yep,
called, but,
yep.
and you were saying it's really not some big crisis if you have to cancel on a food vendor because they don't have like $1,000 committed or something like that, and I'd just like for you to give your
Yeah,
opinion.
what, my experience is I am an event and planning coordinator at a lavender farm, and we have a number of events in the summer, and I deal with a lot of food trucks primarily for us because we don't have food at all, so we have to have food trucks.
Sure.
And in my experience, they can be a bit unreliable, especially if the price tag isn't high enough. So at $25, there's not a lot of skin in the game for them to show up. If it starts raining, if it's icy, they're not gonna come.
Or if they get a better gig.
Or they get a better gig, they won't. We have had to cancel events in the past for various reasons, and we've called and canceled and given them their money back, and it's kind of not a big deal. This is my experience. For me, I am more concerned about our reputation with our dining businesses that are in the village and in our downtown than I am necessarily, you know, if these food vendors have put some money into it. You know, I heard Marty speak at the village meeting, and I didn't get to see, you know, your email with the businesses on there who are concerned. But for me, I would be more looking at how to showcase our dining businesses that are in town, and not inviting transient vendors to come set up. I did see in this packet, you know, Madison's emails from the past about food vendors. Personally, I could easily see if I got this and it was, you know, maybe I wasn't gonna set up a tent outside. I don't know that I would have walked away from these emails thinking we were gonna have 6 food trucks set up and down Main Street. That's just my opinion. I personally wouldn't have any problem suggesting canceling them. I don't know, I would defer to Marty and John, and, you know, you've talked to the dining businesses to kind of hear what they want at this point.
I have a couple comments, just to kind of piggyback on what's been said. I think I was really surprised to see this list here. Up to this point, we've been told that it's not in competition with our businesses in town. It is. We're talking about, you know, chicken fingers, chicken sandwiches, coffee, snacks, food. This is direct competition with our businesses in town. And even the ones that aren't. You know, if I go to a taco truck and I get a taco, I'm not going somewhere else and buying fries. As a DDA district, our one and only focus is those within the district. And I think that to bring in someone else that's gonna take away anything, someone selling candles in front of a gift shop, if I buy $25 candle and I go into your store, and I'm not buying a $20 frame, you know, it's still discretionary spending that we're pulling from the people that are paying the taxes and are expecting us to revitalize their area. And I agree. I think that the focus is our reputation with our restaurants. That's who we're here to support. And I would support canceling it, issuing a refund check to those that have paid their $25, and putting our support behind our businesses in Romeo.
Elizabeth, I'd be interested in knowing, you know, you've been hired as a DDA director. I think I'm sorry. Most everybody would say, you know, you've done an admirable job, pulled off great events and whatnot. I'm interested in knowing you as a hired professional, which we've entrusted, and this goes back to the question, is a dog gonna wag the tail or the tail wags the dog? And, you know, we're a board here to support you with the ideas it's bringing growth and viable excitement to the downtown, a festival that's, you know, that's big. It's Peach Festival's big, and you know, who knows where the Winter Festival goes. Can you give us a little bit of context why, since you are the expert, we've hired you as a director, you are the director, and we're here to support your ideas and help you pull off ideas. Why do you think the food trucks are necessary, and what's some of the context for what's happened? I was not at the Vintage Festival, so I don't have a firsthand experience of how they were there and how important they were there. So give us
Sure.
your background on it.
Sure, thank you for asking. So I guess it kind of goes back a little bit further, because it starts with Winterfest last year, which was our first event that we pulled off in less than 45 days. And we didn't have any vendors whatsoever. And I remember, and Zach reminded me the other day that when we were talking, he's like, you know, it was like a mini, the results of the sales are like a mini Peach Festival. And we heard that from other places in town too, that we got so much business that day in the middle of winter when it's dead. And that is the goal of any downtown, is to have a festival. And I remember asking, okay, when would be the best time to do this? And January was too soon. We didn't have enough time to pull it off. but okay, how far into February could we do it? And it started with the snowmen, like we should have a festival around these snowmen. That's how the whole idea started. It's when Madison showed up for the first time as a volunteer. And so it started with that, and everybody just said we were so busy. I went into restaurants, and people had shopping bags right next to their seats, and I thought, that's perfect, because we've got shoppers and we have diners. Bingo. So when that happened, then the next event that happened with the then tree board, they wanted to do an Arbor Day event, and so we had it's hard to just wrap this into this short thing because there's a lot here. And I say my staff, it's one person and a lot of volunteers. We've worked really hard for this event. A little stat just to throw out, and I'll go back to this. I looked on our social media today. In the last 28 days, we've reached 37,000 people for Winterfest. That doesn't include any of the 5K stuff that's happened. So Arbor Day came around. It was decided, we said if you want to do it in the Village Park, we could partner with you on, because the park is in the Central Business District. And so we were aware, because we've seen it happen before, when an event is in the park, you have the potential of pulling people off Main Street into there and away from shops and restaurants. So, this is the letter that went out, and I'll just read the first part that we said. We are opening this up first to our downtown businesses to bring your food out to the people. It is of utmost importance to us to support our downtown businesses first and foremost. And in the past, it was expected for the downtown businesses to donate stuff. And I said, no. People need to be able to make money at these events. These festivals, you should be making money. That's the whole point of having these businesses downtown. So we said this is not a donation, but an opportunity for you to sell food from your booth. All equipment has to be sold. Well, that's just other things. So Arbor Day came. We had a few. We had Marty. We had JL's was there. We had, I believe we had a taco truck for that one, right? And we had the 5 Degrees North bus was there. I think that was it for food. And it was busy. I know there was no electricity, so like Marty and JL, they couldn't heat up their food, so that made it challenging for that. And then from that, we went on to Vintage Fest, where we did the same thing. We said, first and foremost, we are giving you guys first dibs. We want you guys to participate. And at that one, I believe it was Morgan from Main Street Romeo Kitchen and Bar, and she responded and she said, we don't have the staff to be able to have outside things, but thank you for thinking of us and wanting our opinions on this. And then nobody else took us up on that, other than John, you did the van with them. And I think for Vintage Fest, you were out of town. I believe you said you were on vacation, and you said, I want to have that on my calendar for next year. Well, I'm going to make sure to schedule things around that. And then for Winterfest, of course, we did the same thing. Only this time, when Madison and I were in our planning phases, I said, you know what, let's give them some suggestions. A quick lunch-style menu, grab and go, outdoor food options. And the only person that responded to that was Jessica Newby from Town Hall Soda Fountain. So for that, I will say, we could have done a better job communicating. We could have, instead of just the emails, we could have printed them and sent them, right? We could have, been a little bit more proactive on that. But that last one was sent on December 20th, 22nd. And then, when we did events back in July, before July, this would have been May, when we proposed Vintage Fest, that's when we presented, we said, we've never done this before. We don't think we should charge that much for the vendor fee, so it was in there. There was no objection at that time. So then we went to the next event, the next things, we kept doing that. And without any objection from any restaurants, from any businesses, no one came to us and said, you know what, we really don't want you guys having food trucks in town. So we've been going, we go into restaurants quite frequently, and we have not had anybody during that time. And then the planning meetings and the whatnot, and so we haven't, and we've had restaurant people there, and no one has said, we don't want this.
Real quick, how many food trucks were at Vintage Fest?
Can you answer that? Madison, why don't you just pop up here, honey?
So we did try and get a few out because we knew that there was going to be a lot of people there. We did have one show up, and it was a soul food truck, and it didn't hit the right target audience for them, so they ended up leaving. Kind of to your point, where it's like the skin in the game.
Yep.
We did have other food vendors there. I know Savvy Sliders was there, and Old Fashioned Concessions, which is one of the vendors that is in that list there. They had come up, but they aren't food trucks, they're tent vendors, so they have a different type of setup.
And what is it that we're trying to solve with the food
Sure.
trucks? What is
I
the
was
problem that
just
we're
gonna
trying, or
Yeah,
what are
that's a
we
great
looking
question.
to achieve with the
Sure.
food trucks?
So that's a really great question. In fact, I just did my arrow so I wouldn't forget to say it. So one of the big things that Madison and I have worked really hard on in the last year is saying, okay, how do we, and John, you were part of the first one when we did Winterfest. We were gonna do some stuff in the park, if you remember, and you said, well, what if we did some more stuff on the south end of town to drive traffic down? And then that's when we got in touch with the horse, the people who did the horse wagon rides. So when that idea floated, we were like, okay, what if they start by the Masonic Lodge, get dumped out, that doesn't sound right. What if they get dropped off, the A to B is right in front of Old World Nouveau. Now they're in front of the shops on the south end of town, and then in front of what is now the open JLs. We put the ice carvers there. We had, the guy on stilts was going all over the place. So it was a one-way ticket. So they had to either walk all the way back, and all along the way, they get to see stuff. So think of Epcot Center. When you're going in Epcot Center, if you've ever been once, they have stuff outside, they have stuff inside, and it's a walking experience, right?
But why the food?
Well, I'm getting to that. Yeah, I'm getting to that. And we've got 4 newbies here, so it's a lot for you guys to get caught up on. So Andrea, thank you for talking with me today, and anybody else who wants passport packets, I'd be happy to give those to you. So when people go all the way down there, we have Little Caesars and we have the new JLs, which is fabulous. We have just the data that we're looking at right now. You're going to have a ton of people in town, and so the purpose of us not. We have it roped, we have the permit still, and the road closures for around the park, but here's what I'm concerned about. If we put people back there, if you have a lot of people just gathering around all the food trucks back there, they don't get to see MJC Marketplace. They don't get to see Old World Nouveau. They don't get to see Vera's because they're now tucked up behind our downtown. And our goal is to have throngs of people walking up and down the streets. So if you start at the Masonic Lodge and you're dropped off down at Old World Nouveau and there's something there that you can get a couple snacks on. When our kids were little, we would have done a couple things there, but then we would have wanted to go inside. A lot of times I go places when there's a food truck and I like the idea of it, but I really want to go inside and have a drink in the sit down thing, and because it's cold, I don't want to stand outside. So the idea was to have a couple things on the south end, have a coffee truck on the south end so it doesn't compete with Main Street coffee shop, because it's far enough away where if people are all the way down there, they're cold, they might be, they're thirsty for something warm, and then they've got to trek all the way back up there, and then they're gonna be like, wait a minute, there's that, and then there's FAMS, and there's all these other shops along the way. If we shove them behind something, they're not experiencing the rest of the shops. I'm almost done, I promise. And then on the north end, where you see the pink on, if you guys turn to your map, if you get your map out that we have. And by the way, these have not been published. All of this is draft form. We have not published any of this stuff yet. So it should have been the first one before all the black and white draft copies. We were going to request a road closure there, but then the doctor's office said we could use their parking spots right there. So the idea is the racers, all the runners are right up there on North Church Street. They're walking right by and they're going to see shops. They're going to see something that they can eat and drink along the way. And it's keeping people on Main Street. They're not going off somewhere else. And it's a festival. A festival is more than, we only have one ice sculpture. We've got a few other things that are happening outside. We've got kids stuff. So it's a festive experience. So that was our goal. And we've come before this board multiple times and we've talked about this stuff. While it wasn't, you're right, it wasn't, it wasn't spelled out in the permit that we did. But that's the logic behind this. And I know one of them has been all over social media talking about being at Winterfest. They're super excited about Winterfest. WDIV was asking yesterday when they called, hey, what else is happening? We want to do a story next week.
Well, I think everybody's excited about the
Yeah,
festival.
it's a great event.
The festival is not,
Is it-
I don't think anybody has
Yeah.
issue with the festival.
No.
I
It's
think
just, is it really going to ruin the festival to not have food trucks? And I would say, as somebody who goes to festivals, I don't think I
No,
could
and instead of
less.
pushing them to a food truck, let's push them to our restaurants.
Right.
And I think more than anything else, let's remember that 9 of our restaurants signed a letter yesterday.
We add 2 more to that.
2 more, so we're talking 11 of our downtown restaurants signed a letter to the DDA and to the village council saying, stop.
Who are the other two?
We
Youngers
need this
and
business
Yum Yum
to
Thai.
survive.
I did,
My
I
thing
will,
is this.
hold on, really quick, before we get any further, I reached out to Glenn directly because I saw his name was one of the few that wasn't on there. And his position was, he's not so much concerned about the food trucks themselves, he wants their buy-in to be more significant. It has to be a dollar amount that's going to help promote the festival and actually bring something to the table to get more people out. And I'm only saying that because he specifically asked me to make that statement on his behalf because he couldn't be here. But that's his position. It's not necessarily the idea of the food trucks that bothers him, it's the buy-in to it. So.
And if I could go back to my.
I gotta jump in, I'm sorry, I have to jump in. My name was mentioned on a couple points, and regarding Glenn's point, I fully agree. Who's out there taking down balloons, emptying the trash, working hard to get everything all set so that we can open our doors the next day? The existing brick and mortars, not the ones that have backed up and have taken off. Regarding Glenn's point, speaking of my shock last night, I was aware earlier than last night, but $25, I mean, you gotta be kidding me. That's an absolute, that is a joke, and I'm very, very surprised. And I'll ask either one of you two, if none of the people that you've signed and you've said it's $25 didn't reference, wow, really? I'd be surprised if nobody even referenced that. So, back
probably
to
kept
your
their mouth
point,
shut.
and I fully agree,
Yeah.
Don't worry,
Elizabeth, when these events started, and it was Winterfest was #1, right, back a
Mhm.
year ago?
Yep.
And you mentioned that I brought up putting something at the south end. Exactly, I did. What did I want at the south end? I wanted to draw people down there. Why? Not so that they could get an elephant ear, not so that they could get, a hot dog, so that they would find fans, they would find Old World Nouveau, they would find this existing stores.
To step
They
foot
need to go
inside.
down there for events, for happenings, for ice sculptures, for
Maybe face painting
for
for little
face,
kids or
whatever, and
something.
trust me, I know that's so easy to say and very difficult to pull off because, well, what are these events? But week after week after week, you're having event committee meetings, and you come up with no events for down there except for food trucks. I don't know what the food focus is and why that started. You're gonna take them out of Little Caesars, you're gonna take them out of Speedway. It's nothing but grab and go, smoothies, candy bars, hot dogs. JL, you had a
Coney
ribbon
Island.
cutting a week ago for JL. You're gonna put in 4 or 5 of the spots right next to JL, and I understand maybe that's private property, a food truck? It does not add up. And more upsetting is, we find this out 10 days before the event. And I have been to event committee meetings. I know some of the rest of us have been to event committee meetings. I may be wrong, but I didn't hear anything about this in the event committee meetings. So, that's what's upsetting. I would like to make a motion to ask whether it's Elizabeth or Madison to figure out a way to help us all save face, to make sure we have a successful event, to take all of these existing contract food trucks, to put them in one location, whether it's around Village Park, whether there's possibly a parking lot we can get permission to, whether there's private property that somebody will allow us to, and move on.
Well, I have something to say first.
What, was
That's
there,
my
did you do
mo-
a motion?
There is a motion on the
What-
floor.
What
We
is
can
the mo, that was
discuss after.
really
Susan,
long,
second,
so.
we can
All of the
discuss.
existing food
I'm
trucks.
sorry,
Any existing food trucks that you've already contracted, find a location within the CBD to house them for the day.
I'm marking what time it is, because I'm gonna have to go back and look at the video on this one, so, okay.
What?
That's your
to-
motion?
Yeah, the video to clarify what?
Oh, just for your whole motion, because I don't know shorthand, so.
For the minutes, I think she's
Yeah.
referring to.
That's okay, it was
Oh,
just,
okay.
it was a long motion, so that's
Did
okay.
did you get it?
I did not, that's why I wrote the time down, so I'll be able to check it.
But did you get the motion?
I have that
think-
I have that you made the motion, yes.
We have a motion by Rose. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by
By
Lee.
Lee?
Marty, this would be the time for discussion, so if you have something to
Yes.
say, I'll give you the floor.
Going back to Vintage Fest, we had 2 vendors? Is that what it ended up being, you said?
There was the singular truck, and then there was 2 food vendors, and, no, there were 3 food
So
vendors.
3 altogether as opposed to how many?
Well,
for
no,
this
and we
one?
had a bunch, there were a bunch on Main Street, in front of businesses. We had people, there were people selling other things. other food
Yes, but that
things.
was individualized with each
That's
business.
right,
That
okay,
was an
right,
agreement
that's right.
between whatever the vendor was and the business.
And the reason that when you approached us and you did give us the first opportunity to come out to the sidewalk and set up, that's not what we want to do. We want them to step foot into our business so they will come back into our business. You know, on Arbor Day, when we were out there selling, Jacob Newby was next to me, and I don't know who's, I can't remember who's on the right side, but all 3 of us agreed we would never do that again. The line stayed at the taco truck. It was a continuous line, and we all wasted so much food that night.
Well, and the extra staffing you need
It
to
was,
now
it was
staff
not
your
good,
building and staff
Mhm.
and outside can be very difficult.
but that was a never-ending line for the taco truck,
Yeah.
you know, and we just sat there and just watched.
Well,
in
because they've got the
disbelief.
presence of the truck, you can't compete with
Right.
that.
But when
Um,
we had, you know, homemade, fresh food, and they're selling tacos.
And I know there's a
but-
motion to move it. I personally would like to see the motion to eliminate the food trucks. Honestly, I think that we can issue a refund for the $25 and cancel it, like you said. It's not an unheard of situation. And to support our businesses. I mean, again, I keep going back to 9 restaurants signed a letter saying, we need this money.
Right.
I
We
think
are
it was
more than capable of
Jessica
handling the people
at
that walk in the door.
the soda shop who was asked at the village council meeting, you know, and she said, we need this. We need this business. And to spread it out thin over 6 food trucks that are in direct competition, I think is a real slap in the face to our restaurants.
So the motion on the floor right now, we'll send that to a vote, but I want to just mention something really quick because it was brought up at the village meeting. Do they still have to do the permit with the village directly? There was the discussion that Mark Clark said you are not exempt from the $150 fee that the village requires. So do we have to still go to these vendors and say,
That's true.
you're subject, this
That's what I
$25 fee,
understood.
that's not it. We are gonna need you to fill this out as well and pay the extra $150. Is that
So we
something?
followed protocol. We have an email. In fact, it's part of the emails that you guys got sent today. And we followed up with the village office staff, and we found that we have a permit, we have an event permit, and all the permits fall underneath the event permit. So we follow protocol. So I'd just like to say, you know, we'll do whatever you guys want to do, whatever you want to do. If you want to switch horses this late in the game, that's fine. Here we are 12 days prior, 11 days at this point, prior to the event. You know, last summer, I guess it's a little discouraging and disheartening as your director that at this point, but I'm gonna say, I'm okay with it.
7:30 tonight.
What's
No,
the
I'm
point?
okay with it. You guys all do whatever you want to do.
We were a
I'm
little
good with it.
disheartening at-
You just let me know what you want to do.
You know, all the information wasn't fully submitted as far as hamburgers and hot dogs. We kept hearing, it's snacks, it's snacks, it's snacks. So we were
Sure.
just as as much upset
I-
when we saw the
Then
menu.
I apologize for
I
that.
think there's regardless, there's a learning lesson we can all take away from this, and I think our next goal should be to define some better guidelines for events moving forward, outside vendors, get the input from the restaurants that are in town. You guys are on the board now, obviously. There's other restaurant owners who are not, but their input's valued as well. Because we can't just have events that don't have anything out of the ordinary either. Like, I think there's a middle ground we can find here. I don't know what that is, but I think it's definitely something this board can work towards. But I can't get over what the village attorney did tell us at the meeting, that this was required and I don't know if we can ignore that. I'd like clarification on that before, if we decide to keep the food vendors, I would like some sort of clarification on that, just so we know that we're not, they show up to town
Sure.
and somebody's asking them for their permit. It's like, well, here's the DDA permit, and they're saying, well, where's the village permit? We don't have that. So I want to make
Yeah.
sure that we're,
That makes sense.
Did you get
Sure.
clarification today, Elizabeth, after after the village council meeting?
No, I did not.
Oh, okay.
No, I did not. So, you know, when we started doing this in the first place, we were like, okay, well, what do they have to do for Peach Festival? You know, and so we asked those questions. So we've done our homework. Obviously, there's a lot of lessons learned here. We'll do whatever it is the board wants us to do. Seriously, whatever you guys want us to do, we will do that. So,
Well, it almost always comes down to a communication, right? I mean, it's just a communication problem. I think I'll speak just for myself and say that we apologize that it came up at such the last minute, but that's just kind of the nature of miscommunication, is once it starts to clarify and become clear, then it becomes the emergency that it is now. So, I mean, I think that's very typical. I do agree that we do need to find these unique things to do at these festivals, but I think it's more experiences and doing things than
Yes.
it is eating strangers'
Selling,
foods.
no selling experiences.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
mean,
agree.
Fire and Ice in Rochester's a huge hit, but there's other things that we can do. I'm sure we can.
so.
Peach
Come up with
Festival
stuff.
was listed under the permits, but Peach Festival was the only one. It didn't say all festivals. It said, it was
Peach Festival and the
specified
village-wide garage
Peach
sale
Fest.
were the two exemptions
Yes.
from,
Yes.
correct.
and you know, when the new administration changed, you know, I sat down with Megan and just said we'd really like, the DDA really needs a memorandum of understanding, because the DDA is different than anybody else coming to get a permit. I mean, you know, we should have things for sign, and this is a conversation for another time. Perhaps a workshop, perhaps you know, some sort of a goal-setting thing with the board, looking at proper procedures, you know, what does a board make up? There's, I sent the educational stuff out. So at this point, we're looking direction from you. Whatever you all want us to do is fine. I am concerned about the numbers, but we'll see what happens.
While we're still in discussion, Elizabeth, on this, John made the motion of putting all the food trucks in a consolidated area.
Sure.
That, to me, does not accomplish what you, again, I'll go back to the fact, you are the DDA director. We're your board. We hired you to get this done, and so far, in the last year or so, I've seen nothing that hasn't worked really well. So you continue to have my confidence because you're getting the job done, and I don't think that can be debated. So that said, if we go with John's motion of moving all the trucks in one location, that does not accomplish a goal of moving people around the village to get somewhere else for an elephant ear and get somewhere else for whatever. So I'm just thinking out loud here, that doesn't seem to accomplish this. So in lieu of all this discussion, these new perspectives, as a DDA director, do you still think that the food trucks are, and I understand, you know, the point down there about, this is, you know, we're trying to, the restaurants all signed a letter and this, that, and the other, but one thing you'll learn as you work on the DDA and get to know it better, the DDA is not for the betterment of, it's very difficult, but, and I've learned this from sitting around here last year or so, to look at a full community perspective and not just a financial services building perspective, or the fact that I don't necessarily want a nappy truck sitting in front of my building, dripping oil on the parking lot, and then I gotta deal with it. I get, but if it's for the betterment of the community, just like for the last 20 years plus that I've owned these buildings in the community, I've tried to give them back as much as I can at a cost to me to do that, because I've never financially gained from anything along the way. I give away parking to event people at the teams and sports, they park cars, they do whatever. So we're not gonna be able to do things that benefit, you know, we can't, you have to be very careful to say, well, all the restaurants benefit from this. Well, you know what, but maybe all the people that drive in from Ferndale to see it, they don't benefit because they can't get a elephant ear or an icy pop or pop, whatever it is. So we really have to look community-wide on everything, and sometimes there's winners and sometimes there's losers in these events, but I know, every restaurant business in town will have a better day that Saturday because of the Winterfest. There's no doubt about it. And because somebody is better off, it doesn't mean you're worse off. So we have to look at this fair-minded, I think. So all that said, Elizabeth, I'm gonna ask you again, because we'll be calling a vote.
Sure.
Do you still think, as a DDA director, with the experience you have, I think you're more knowledgeable than anybody in this room about these things, are the food trucks still a good idea in light of maybe these new perspectives you've learned about?
I think they are, but I run the risk of having half the board not like me. But here's the thing, it's not all about
We can have
liking it, that's
different
not what I mean, let me
opinions,
take
yeah.
that back. I'm not trusting my, my knowledge on this, but I also run the risk of this. If you have the food trucks, anybody could say, but we didn't do as good as we
That's right.
could have.
That's all right.
So my
But
concern is that.
fair-minded people won't go for that.
Mhm.
Fair-minded people, that will be gaslighting. They won't go for that, because everybody knows it will be a better day for Youngers, for Marty, for JLs, for everybody will have a
Sure.
better day Saturday because of this event, no matter what happens.
By splitting them up, on both ends, it's to get the people walking and moving and
Yeah.
flowing and that thing, not congested in one
That's fine.
area, and then you can't get them around.
I mean,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
just
sure.
wanted to hear again
Could I
from you,
make-
because I trust you, because you've done this very well for a long time, and I think you've done your research. And there's some communication issues, certainly we need to be worked on, but that's throughout society, so, moving on.
Go ahead, Danielle.
I just wanted to clarify when I had asked my question, the problem we were trying to solve. So
Sure.
last year, you had said for Winterfest, we didn't have any food trucks. That was the first event. So
Correct.
was the issue we were trying to solve is that people were not moving up and down? Is that what you were seeing?
That's a great question. No, people were moving up and down.
Okay.
But when people were moving up and down, I mean, I went in every single restaurant, they were packed.
Sure.
And people were waiting. And
Sure.
so, just in the last few weeks alone, in fact, I was talking to one of the businesses in town, and he said, I came in to go to have dinner with my wife on Friday, and Art and Jake's had 45-minute, came into Bon Appetito, hour-and-a-half wait, tried to go to another restaurant, another wait. My concern with this is, because we have the data to back it up, my concern with this is, if you have several kids, I think, Zach, you and I talked about this, and if you have to wait in line to get into someplace, you might just decide, you know what, sorry, honey, we can't go see the princesses, or we're not gonna go do it, we gotta get these kids fed. We've seen enough, let's take off. We want them to be there all day.
Sure.
So that's the idea behind this is.
I was just
yeah.
thinking of, October and speaking to Nikki in the past at Office Pub and Caleb, that they have more than an hour wait, and people wait. They wait because they want to eat there. So just thinking of these different things.
Sure.
Some people might pop into John's place and grab a bagel. Some people are going to have a beer and sit down at Main Street
Sure.
Kitchen and Bar.
And just to add to that, I don't want to
yeah,
interrupt you,
go.
but that wait, when they wait at the Office Pub, they get text when it's time. They come down and shop at Vera's, or they'll go to Zach's, or they'll go wherever. So it does spread it around town, the waiting.
That's an interesting idea, is maybe everybody this year should invest in a way to be able to text people, because I love that. If I go to Rochester, I always end up waiting. It's an hour here, it's an hour and a half there, it's 45 minutes here, and we always go to the one who will text us, so we can go shopping or go do something. I don't want to stand there in line, but I'm okay with shopping around and going back.
So we do have
Maybe don't lose the
we've got a motion on the table by Rose to direct Elizabeth and Madison to find an area within the CBD where all of the food trucks can be placed. And we have a second by Lee. All right, Elizabeth, I'll have you do a roll for this.
Sure. Tar,
No.
Hutnick,
I'm sorry, can you repeat it?
Having the trucks behind in the area, putting all the trucks together in one area off of Main Street.
Yes.
oh, sorry, my chicken scratch over here. St. Laurent,
Wait a minute, back up. Sorry.
I think there will be another motion to say not at all.
Yes.
So I just want to make sure you understand.
Not if this passes.
St. Laurent.
Not
Yeah.
if this passes.
Not if this
There won't be another
Right.
motion.
And I guess can I say
Discussion's
something? Am I allowed to
over.
say
All right, hold on,
something?
we're calling, we're
Yeah,
in a roll call.
I messed up.
Okay.
okay, St. Laurent,
No, I'd like to see a motion to eliminate.
okay, Brandt,
No.
Rose,
Yes.
Hayes,
Yes?
Lee,
Yes.
McLeod.
No.
2-4, okay, motion fails.
Okay.
I would like to make a motion to direct Elizabeth to cancel the contracts with the food vendors, issue refunds for any monies paid in light of the, maybe I'm getting too wordy, so direct me if I am, in light of the restaurant letters and in light of the additional permits needed by the village.
Second.
I'm sorry, was that Carl?
He
Was that
said
you?
second,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, Tar,
No.
Hutnick,
Yes.
St. Laurent,
Yes.
Brandt,
Yes.
Rose,
No?
Hayes,
No.
Lee,
Yes.
McLeod.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. I'd just like to add one thing. There is one vendor that is selling fresh squeezed, like healthy juices that are bottled ahead of time. They are going to be inside the church. I would really like for us not to have to cancel that one because they've already purchased an enormous amount of stuff. But they're inside the church, so they're not in the downtown area, so.
I only think what we were discussing were the ones listed here.
And outside.
the outside vendors, so I
Okay.
don't think that's an issue.
Okay.
Okay, moving on, under new business, chair seat appointments for the vacancies. Do we want to do this tonight, or do we want to table it?
I'm fine.
I think you
Go
need
for it.
somebody in place to get
I
some business done.
do.
right?
I mean,
Yes.
it's, yeah.
Do it.
Let's help her. She needs to
Okay.
get
I'll
it
make a
done.
motion to nominate Zach Hayes
I'll second
as
it.
chair for the DDA.
All right, we have a motion by,
Give
yeah,
it
times it by
one.
10.
Motion by Rose.
Motion by Rose, second by Tar.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is anybody interested in vice chair? Carl, you're kind of a
Okay.
tenured member here.
Sure.
Anyone want to make?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Yep.
We have
Okay,
a.
hold on. Okay, so that's for Brandt.
We have a motion by St. Laurent, and second, was it Tar or Hutnick?
Tar.
It could be.
All right, second by Hutnick to nominate Carl Brandt
Okay.
as vice chair for the Romeo DDA.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. That will make my life a little bit, I can breathe a little easier, so
Good.
thank you. I appreciate
Good.
that.
All right, we'll go around board member comments.
Well, I just want to say I'm happy to be on the board. I'm glad that this is settled, and I'm looking forward to moving on with everybody and being a part of the downtown area.
Same with me. I've enjoyed going to the event committee meetings since before Christmas and volunteering where I can, and I'm excited to be more involved.
Right?
Welcome, new folks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
John?
Also welcome all of you as well. And then a real brief comment. I'm hoping we can all try to do some homework. I have found, and I believe there's been a lot of embarrassment with this board over the last couple months, couple meetings anyways. And I'm hoping that we can all come together to figure out a way to resolve some of that, because it doesn't benefit anybody. So, without getting into specifics, maybe next meeting, if there's some ideas, and we can add something to the agenda to discuss, just to try to make communication better, to try to make some of our duties better, and what's been troubling me is to get all of the board a little more engaged than we have been. And I think that's gonna help a lot with this communication. You know, showing up once a month, saying, I never heard about it, well, of course you did. So just wanted to make that public comment to the board, so I'm hoping next month you guys can help me by coming up with some ideas, which in turn will help Elizabeth. So that's my desire, and thank you.
Just welcome everybody. Looking forward to working with everybody that's here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, thank you, and please be patient, because this is all new for me. So, thank you. And by all means, thank you both. I mean, it doesn't mean, you guys, I know how hard you worked, and we appreciate it.
Thank you.
So, thank you.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's an ongoing theme through the village, is that everybody's
Oh,
very
yeah.
grateful.
Mhm.
We might not agree on 100% of everything, but everybody is very grateful that we agree on.
Yes.
All right, thank you, everyone, and with that, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make it.
Motion by Tar, do I have a second?
My second.
Second by Lee, all in favor? Aye. All right, meeting is adjourned.
Hey, a notice went out